Right, this is week 8. We're going to be going through the slides for this week, which were primarily about workshopping. And we'll do some questions, and then after that, we will do a brief overview of next week and get you guys in the right mindset for the next project coming up. One thing I do want to note, though, if you may notice on my chest here, I did vote on Tuesday, and so the voting polls are now open. They opened up on Tuesday for early voting. Those of us in the faculty have been asked to share a get out the votes message to you guys. So if you are registered and able to get to your polls as soon as you can, don't wait till election day, because election day is going to be a mess this year. Okay, I can pretty much guarantee that. All right. So public service announcement out of the way. Let's go ahead and get started with our slides. So today we're talking about workshopping done right. Okay. Primarily we're talking about workshopping procedure. Okay. First, what we need to establish here is the current schedule that we are working with for the semester right now, at least for the next 2 weeks. Okay. So this week is revision week for the evaluation essay. Okay. You should have a draft posted to your team's discussion board. You should be giving feedback to your teammates' essays. Okay. This is important. We got to have everybody on board with this. Next week is proofreading and editing workshop. You'll need to post a revised draft to the discussion board that's 90% complete for the next week's workshop. And you'll need to give proofreading feedback to your teammates' essays. Okay. So you should have your papers mostly complete by next week when you guys workshop them for proofreading. Next Thursday, the link is going to open to turn in the evaluation. It's going to be under the assignments tab. Okay. You'll need to turn in all your drafts along with the final draft. Now, I'm going over this primarily because there's been a significant lack of participation in the workshop sessions on the classical argument, and it showed in the results that I got. Okay, there were a lot of papers that were kind of lacking in terms of what kind of quality they had. It was very obvious that a lot of them were early drafts that did not get a feedback. Okay, so to be helpful, we're going to go through how a proper workshop session works. What you should be doing. Okay? So first off, the question is, why do we workshop in the first place? Well, Yagelski makes mention of this in the early chapters of the textbook. One of his 10 core concepts is that writing is a social activity. Okay? So this partly means you write for an audience toward a particular consumer. You have somebody in mind that you want to read your stuff. You also write for yourself to express your opinions, arguments, or other feelings. Okay? But another social part of the act of writing is the writing process itself, which includes getting feedback. Okay? A necessary step in the writing process is getting feedback from readers to know what you are doing right and what you are doing wrong. That is the whole point of a workshop. That's what you guys need to be doing. Okay? Workshops are about improvement, not so much criticism. Okay? Workshops are about helping each other make better essays, helping each other write better. Okay, it's not so much about telling people what they're doing wrong. Okay, to be successful, writers need multiple viewpoints to offer feedback on their work. So, in order for you to fully craft your paper correctly and fully do it right and have a successful essay, you need to have that feedback. You need to hear what people are thinking of it, so that you know what to change and what to fix. Okay. Let's talk about presenting drafts and offering feedback. In order to fully compose a polished, well-reasoned essay, it's necessary to get feedback from your peers. When the writer presents the work to you, this is what you want to do with it. You want to read it over at least 3 times. Okay. First time, read it over once just to get an idea of the main topics and the arguments being covered. Okay. So take a look at what they're saying, get a general idea of what they've written about. Second time, you read it again slower and more carefully and consider elements in the writing that you like. Right? So, what kind of things are they doing right? What kind of things appeal to you? What kind of things are they doing that make you say, hey, this is something I want to continue reading? And finally, when I read it the third time, consider elements in the writing that may be awkward or cause other readers issues. Okay? So, what kind of stuff in the third go around? What kind of stuff do you see that might need improvement? Some stuff that may be awkward, things that may not sound right, maybe things that may not read right. Okay, elements that may need more explanation. When you give your feedback to the writer, start with what they're doing right and what you feel works. Move from there to elements that may need revision. It's a lot easier to handle a workshop session and giving criticism to your peers if you butter them up first and let them know what you like about their stuff before you go on to what you did wrong. Okay? So talk about what needs revision. Okay? Some of the elements that may need revision in context with this current assignment we're working on. So this is strictly in terms of the evaluation. So if the criteria is unclear, the writing does not give any idea of how the subject is being judged or for what reason those criteria exist. I've had a lot of people send me emails and asking me about their criteria. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why I was telling people if they had subjects like, to use one example I can remember, the effects of smoking and drinking on the human body. That's not an evaluation as much as it's an argument about why this stuff is bad. Okay, because there's no real, there's something good about smoking or there's something good about drinking. Okay, there's no real good in there. It's mostly going to be bad. Okay, so your criteria for evaluation is what's going to judge whether your subject is good or bad. Okay, and your criteria has to be something that the reader can figure out. If the reader can't tell what you're judging it against, then that's going to bode poorly for the rest of your evaluation. Okay? Another thing that might need revision, details are not present. The writer does not have a clear idea of what sort of subject the writer is dealing with because there's not enough specific detail included. All right? So if you're not being detailed enough about your subject and what it is that you're trying to tell the people about, and there's a good chance that your evaluation is not going to go over too well with your audience because they won't know what you're talking about. Okay, so make sure that you are clear with your audience. This is what I'm talking about. This is what we're trying to achieve. This is how I'm rating it. This is what I'm rating. Okay. Organization. If the essay is arranged in a haphazard way or in any order of arguments that either confuses the audience or makes little sense, if there's not a natural progression from one argument to the next, if it doesn't really flow, if it doesn't have any logic to it, that's going to be something to bring up. If you feel the organization feels off, okay? We have readability issues. Are there enough paragraph breaks? That's an important one. We'll come back to that in a second. Is the language being used understandable, or is there a lot of specific terminology that will lose the average reader? Does the tone feel like something a reader will want to engage with? All right, so let's talk about these individually. Enough paragraph breaks. I've had a number of essays that I've had to grade in the last week and a half or so where people were just going crazy with paragraph length. As a rule of thumb, for a paragraph to be successful, it's for a good paragraph, it should be limited to a single idea and the details that back that idea up. Okay? Do not put more than one idea into a paragraph, and that's the main problem that people were having. I've seen people that were writing page-and-a-half long paragraphs that had anywhere from 3 to 6 different ideas presented and the details that prove those ideas. You need to cut it down so that each paragraph is only one idea and the details that back that idea up. Okay, that is the whole idea of paragraph breaks. It's in order to make it easier for the reader to handle. If you have those extremely long paragraphs, that becomes a slog for the reader after a while. Language, okay? What kind of terms are you using, and are you defining them well enough that the reader can understand? Okay? Is it the language being used understandable? Okay? Are you using a lot of jargon? Do you need to be in a particular group to understand some of the terms you're using? Okay. Then we have readability issues. Are there enough, or excuse me, does the tone feel like something a reader would want to engage with? How are you writing it? What kind of tone of voice are you using when you're writing? Are you coming across as something that might be a pleasant conversation? Something like, hey, this is what I'd like to talk to you about, and you're staying friendly and staying personable, staying really kind of professional? Or do you take a bit more sharp of an angle there? Are you being snarky? Are you being rude? Okay, is there anything that might be construed as you disrespect the reader? Okay, that's what it comes down to. Make sure the tone is right. All right, so once you get your feedback, it's up to you to decide how much of it you want to integrate into the next draft. Okay, so one thing to do is start off by comparing your feedback against each other so you know what areas are consistently mentioned by your workshopping peers. If you have one thing that's mentioned by everybody across the board, that's probably going to be something you want to fix because everybody's noticing it and everybody thinks it's a problem. Okay. Any feedback that contradicts should be evaluated in terms of which argument is stronger and which feels more helpful. It'll be up to you ultimately which feedback you follow. Okay. So there will be times when peer feedback will give you one reader says this really works, I like it, and another reader says, oh, you know what, I have a problem with like this. I don't think this works. Okay, it's going to be up to you to decide which one of them is right and which one of them to follow. Ultimately, it's up to you because it's your essay. You can take as much of the feedback and use it as you want. Okay. There are certain bits of feedback that you probably should work with every time. Okay. One is feedback calling for more detail. Okay. Feedback calling for more detail should lead to the inclusion of more details. If they're telling you you're not being detailed enough, look for some more detail that you can put in. Look for something else that you can use to help them understand what your topic is, because that's actually key to understanding the topic is getting as much detail as you can about it. Okay. Feedback about organization or readability issues should be addressed as well based on what issues are being found. Okay. So if people are telling you that it's uncomfortable to read or the organization is confusing, it doesn't make sense, these are also bits of feedback that you should address. Okay. So the next, proofreading and editing. This stage of the process is the final polish a draft needs before being submitted. At this point, the draft you present for proofreading and editing should be at least 90% complete. Any revisions mentioned in the previous workshop should already be integrated. Okay. Give me a second here. It's just 60 says paragraph be about each other. Okay, that's a reasonable organization. Okay. All right. So 90% complete draft should be presented next week at the proofreading and editing workshop. Okay. Any revisions that I mentioned in the previous workshop should already be integrated. Okay. If anybody tells you that you need to fix something, that fix should be in there by the time you get to this draft. Proofreaders are looking for mechanical issues in the essay. So what they're looking primarily for is spelling, grammar, and mechanics. Okay. Starting with spelling. Are your words spelled correctly? In line with the standards of the language and the region in which you are writing. Okay. So, have you done the correct spellings for your region? Okay. Are you sticking with the English that is prevalent? Okay. Keep in mind, I mentioned in the lecture that there's a lot of regionalization when it comes to the difference between American English and Continental English. Okay. I don't think I actually put out examples of them on screen. So let me to give you some of the example differences between Continental and American English. So of the ones I mentioned in the video, here we go. Check in the chat. one. That's offense and defense. Okay. This one was also mentioned. License. Okay. This one I mentioned. Theater. Okay. Here's another fun one that I mentioned. Aluminum versus aluminium. Okay. There's color. Okay. And then we have the godfather of them, the craziest spelling difference. That would be maneuver. Okay. And this is just the written forms. This is not including the pronunciation ones. I think I mentioned the British pronounce the word lieutenant. They pronounce it lieutenant for some reason. Okay. There's also some punctuation elements that differ between Continental English and American English, and it's primarily quotation marks. So American looks like this. Okay, we got the double quotation marks out on the outside, the single quotation marks on the inside. Continental English does it the other way around. So, okay, make sure that you're using the right spellings for the area that you're writing. Grammar. Are your sentence structures good? Have you eliminated run-on sentences, comma splices, or sentences? Grammar primarily is dealing with sentence structures and with how you are constructing your sentences. If you have sentence fragments where it's just a subject or just a predicate, those are things that need to be fixed. They need to be linked up with something that will make them a complete sentence. If you have comma splices or run-on sentences, these are typically going to be multiple sentences that are jammed into a single sentence, either just by not including a period or by using a connect them. Okay? So, the other thing is mechanics. Is your punctuation correct for the context? Do you utilize the right words and punctuations for the right situations? Okay. So that gets into those quotation marks again. This also deals with have you used all the other punctuation correctly, periods, commas, that sort of thing, semicolons, colons, or have you done like my one student who decided to put 30,000 commas into a single essay, or other students I've had that use nothing but that do not even use periods. Okay. Make sure that the punctuation are right. Also, make sure that you are using the right words. Okay. This gets into areas such as homonym disagreement. Okay. I've actually had a couple of examples of that in the papers I've graded recently. I can't remember the specific words that were used and what they were trying for, but it was basically two words that sounded alike but had completely different meanings and also completely different spellings. Okay? So make sure that all of your words are correct. Make sure all your punctuation is correct. That's mechanics. Okay? All right, so the next part here, conducting an online workshop. Okay, because we're doing everything online, that also includes our workshop sessions. There's going to be a few things that are imperative for workshops to work in this class. Please pay attention to this because this is a problem we've been having with the classical arguments. I don't want it to repeat itself. So first off, everyone must participate. Okay? Team members not submitting drafts, just submitting drafts and not giving feedback as will not be on the team at all. Okay? So make sure everyone is participating in the session. Everyone must give a draft to read. Everyone must read other people's drafts and leave feedback. Okay? Everyone must check for drafts regularly. During the workshop week, I would recommend checking it at least twice daily. Okay? Once in the morning, once in the evening, make sure that you've caught everybody that's possibly posted the drafts to the team clearinghouse. Okay, that gets us to the next point here. Find a system that works for your team. Some teams have started using Google Drive as a clearinghouse for workshop drafts. Others are still using the discussion board. Okay, any system works so long as everyone can agree to use it and check it. So this means it's going to be up to you. If you guys have agreed that you're going to use a Google Drive, everybody has to be able to access that drive, and everybody has to be checking it regularly. Okay. Same with the discussion boards. If you decide to use the discussion boards, everybody has to be checking that discussion board regularly. Make sure that you're seeing the drafts that are there, and that you're giving feedback to the drafts that are there. Now, this is the hard part. You need to remember that it is your responsibility to participate in the workshop with your teammates. They are counting on you, and you are counting on them. Unfortunately, I can only do so much to encourage people to participate in this stuff. What it comes down to is it's going to be your responsibility eventually just to buck up and do the stuff. Okay. I can't force. All I can do is encourage people. I can post messages. I can talk about how it might affect grading, talk about how it affects the final project. But ultimately, it's going to come down to whether you participate or not. Okay. Whether these sessions are successful. All right. So let's go ahead and take some questions here. We'll go ahead. I'll give you about 10 minutes to get questions, and then we'll talk briefly about what's coming up next week in terms of the next project you guys are working on.
I actually have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So like with argument, when you're doing an evaluation essay, do you have an opposing audience, like those that oppose your views, or something, or someone like?
Well, honestly, the main idea here is just there's not really going to be a lot of engagement with the opposition here. Pretty much the opposition is just going to be whoever disagrees with your assessment and likes or dislikes whatever it is that you're evaluating. Okay, not too worried about engagement. The main feature that you want to make sure you're getting in there is your criteria for evaluation.
Okay, so opposition is not really that. So do I have stuff to do it, or?
I'm sorry, what's that?
I was saying opposition is still something I need to do.
Yes. Opposition viewpoint is not really something you need to do for this. Okay. I want you to primarily focus on your evaluation based on the criteria you've set up.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Samuel, I see you there. What's your question?
So can the paper just be about anything? Like, I'm just having a little bit of a hard time just about what to write about. I mean, is there anything specific or any general topic or?
The paper has to be about criteria for that you can evaluate against to determine whether it's good or bad. Okay. Another thing I mentioned earlier in the class was not today, but in an earlier session was talked about creating categories. What category does your subject fall into, and how would you compare it against other things in that category? What kind of stuff do quality things in that category have, and can you apply those to the subject that you're working with?
Okay. Could you give me an example? I know you gave me an example last class, but it was about like some amphitheater or something, and about the quality of it, and how he thought it was going to be something different.
Yeah, that was about a museum. Okay, I gave you that one. Pretty much, I also gave the examples of the reviews from the lecture last week. There was the theme park review. There was a book review, TV show review, and 2 movie reviews. Okay.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we're looking at here in terms of evaluation. You're setting up the subject in a category. What criteria in that category determines what is good in that category? Then you're taking that criteria and comparing it against the subject to see how well it compares.
Okay. So I'm using 2 examples. So I'm using one example as the standard, and then another example as how it doesn't meet the standard, or how it exceeds it, or how it.
Well, you don't want to just use 2 subjects here. You want to try to. I'm talking like a general category, not necessarily in a single example from that category, but I'm looking for a general category and what would be considered to be quality within that category.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, I have a question here. If a movie is part of a series, can we reference the other movies or just evaluate it on its own? Yeah, you want to reference the other movies because that's ultimately going to be part of your criteria, is how well it stands up within the series to the other films. Okay. Okay, Sam, I see your hand there. What's your question?
Yes, my question is that the in our evaluation essay, like, can we talk like about like advantage or disadvantage about something about our topics?
That's kind of hard because you're going to get into just a general informational essay there if you just talk about advantages versus disadvantages. Because the evaluation has to have an argument behind it. If you're just generally talking about advantages versus disadvantages, you're not really getting into an argument. So that's not to say that you can't use that subject, whatever it is that you were going to talk about, advantages, disadvantages of whatever it is. Maybe you could try to rephrase that a bit into this is something that makes it good. This is something that makes it bad.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So try to recontextualize advantages and disadvantages for evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm going to switch to the whiteboard here, and we're going to talk briefly about what the next project you guys are going to be doing is. Okay. Mainly because it's going to take a little bit of explanation here, and also because it is a team project. So really, you're going to need to have your teams coordinated and working together well in order to make this work. Okay. So what we're talking about here is the annotated bibliography project. What is that for? Just so it says annotated bibliography, I can't edit that. Okay, so annotated bibliography is a team project. Okay. And your team is going to be getting together to do some research. Okay. Here's what this entails. Let's get black here. There we go. All right. Each member is going to perform research on a single topic. Find research sources. Okay. Each one of you is going to find a minimum of 2 sources. Okay. So you're going to perform the research. You're all going to be working with a single topic within your team. Okay. Once you have your sources, everybody's going to bring their sources together, and everyone's going to use the same set of sources to write the annotated bibliography. Here's where we get the little twist here. The annotated bibliography also includes, not only does it include the bibliographical information, there's a couple other things it also includes. Information. Also includes a brief summary of the source and an evaluation of the source's usefulness. Okay. Included in a. All right. Now, here's the other thing. The team's going to be working with a single general topic, but each student within the team is going to have their own perspective on the topic. You guys are going to have differing viewpoints and differing approaches that you're going to take to that topic. Okay, so that'll result in everybody having a different subtopic. Okay, so for example, if one team was working on immigration, okay, let's put this in red. If one team's working on immigration, okay, then potentially one person could be working on the topic of illegal immigration. Okay, one person could be working on immigration enforcement. Okay, one person could be working with other countries' policies. Okay, and so on and so forth. Okay, you're finding different subtopics within that main topic on how to deal with the topic of immigration. Okay, within your topic, you're going to have to determine how useful each of those sources is going to be. Okay, so within your subtopic, is source A going to be useful? Source B going to be useful? Source C going to be useful? Source D going to be useful? Evaluating up and down all of the sources that your team found. Okay, so that's how the team aspect works on this. Your team is going to be collectively working with a single general topic, but then you're going to have to evaluate how they work with your particular subtopic. Okay, everyone's going to be writing their own annotated bibliography with their own subtopics using the same list of bibliographical sources. Okay, so that's the general overview of this. We're going to get into more detail on how you guys are going to be writing these and how you guys are going to be doing this in next week's lecture. But I wanted to give you guys a heads up here because this is going to involve a lot of team effort. Okay, each one of you is going to have to present at least two sources. Okay, so generally speaking, if your team has 3 members, your annotated bibs are going to have 6 sources. If you have 14 members, your annotated bib is going to have 8 sources. If you have 5 members, your annotated bib is going to have 10 sources. Okay, that's how this should generally work. This should. Okay. Now I have had issues in the past, even with face-to-face classes, where groups just didn't do this. In fact, they just kind of abandoned each other. And I had very few people turn into the annotated bibliography because they didn't have a group to help them, and they only turn into sources. Keep in mind, not only do you need a full annotated bibliography to complete this project, you're going to need one for the next assignment. So one thing I wanted to make note of here, your subtopics within the general topic should be topics that can lend themselves to a proposal. Okay. Subtopic should lean toward a proposal because you're going to be using this list of sources as your research sources for your proposal essay. That's going to be the next project immediately following this. Okay. That's That's mainly to save you guys time, since you don't have to do a fresh set of research. All right. So, so it's going to be really important that you guys participate in this, because otherwise, it's going to snowball down the line, and everybody's going to bomb this anti-bib, and subsequently everybody will wind up bombing the proposal. Okay, we don't want that to happen, so everybody needs to be participating through whatever channels you have set up for workshopping. Use those to get together with your teams. Use those to coordinate what you're researching. Use those to coordinate your topics. Okay, so that's the general overview on this anti-bib project. So we can open it up to some more questions if anybody has any about this or about anything. Okay, go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question, and I'll call on you. All right, we'll give about a couple more minutes for everybody has questions. All right. Well, if there's, we'll go ahead and cut you guys loose here. So we're going to need you to continue workshopping these evaluation essays. Make sure everything is set on those. And we will do another lecture next Monday. That will get started on the anti-bibs. Another one of these sessions next Thursday, and I will see you guys then. Thanks for coming by. I'll see you later.